Ah, Envista. Now, you may be thinking that this is possibly the name of some new drug. You know, that you see those drug commercials all the time, and people that are more than 6 inches tall should not take Envista. But no. This is a new Buick. This is a car that looks like a hatchback, and it is. It looks like an SUV, and you could call it a crossover, I guess. It's more of a wagon, to be honest with you, because it's got the ground clearance. Looks like it's an SUV, but the fact of the matter is you can only get it with front wheel drive. And the more I experience it, the more I find that this one has a purpose in life. This particular vehicle was designed for something very specific. The Avenir, as you walk down the Avenir, is our trim level. So what in the world do we have? Is this an exciting new Buick that people are gonna rush to their dealership to have? Or is this something that's gonna end up with a little bit more of an industrial life? I'll explain that and other things right after this. .106 inches of wheelbase, a curb weight of about 3,100 pounds. What I would call, boy, it's kind of hovering over that fine line between a compact and a mid-size SUV. What's the official classification? Hell, I don't know. We'll look it up later and find it, but the styling on this car is beautiful, and I'm assuming it was styled here in America, because what you got is a car that's built in Korea with a Mexican engine. So that makes it an American car company building a car in Korea with an engine that is sourced from south of the border in Mexico. And the styling is very, very futuristic. So I'm assuming it was probably styled in Dearborn, Michigan, but I don't know that for sure. But it's a pretty car, and initially when I saw it, it looks much larger than it actually is, which means it actually has a good amount of room in it and a good amount of cargo room, but at the same time, it's not an overly huge vehicle. And more than anything else, it's designed to also be economical to operate, because it has a very, very, very small engine. It has a 1.2 liter inline triple, 3 cylinders, which of course you could never get out of its own way if it didn't have turbocharging, which it does have. Got to have them turbochargers, because that is the way in 2024. And speaking of 2024, if you're going to travel anywhere this year, probably next year, and you find yourself in need of a rent-a-car, I'm willing to bet you may find yourself behind the seat of this vehicle right here. Well, not this exact vehicle, but one that looks just like it. Because to me, that seems like this is completely designed for that. But you know what else I also think? If you take a good look at the styling, I believe this vehicle is destined for electrification, because it already looks like an electric. It's got that kind of beautiful swoopy bodywork. I mean, it's a gorgeous car. I really like the styling a lot. I think it's very, very handsome. But this being the first iteration of the vehicle for the United States, this will be powered by that little engine, which, is it adequate? Is it strong enough? Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. Matter of fact, let's take a look at it right now, because I haven't looked at the engine under the hood yet, and I'm real curious. I mean, a triple in a big old car like this? Will it fly? Let's have a look. Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick this year? Boy, I am old. I actually remember that. Look at this. Isn't it cute? It's so small. This is 1.2 liters right here of internal combustion engine power. And your cylinders are like 1, 2, 3. 3 little guys in there like the Three Stooges, or who else, you know, the Kingston Trio. Is that right? Kingston Trio? Anyway, I know, the Mod Squad. You can find it, you look around in streaming, you'll find it somewhere. But here we are. And our turbocharger is, of course, mounted in the rear, in between the engine block and the firewall. And what happens is, here's our exhaust right here. It goes into the turbocharger, which then spins the impeller, and the impeller then compresses the air, and then it goes whee! It rides like one of them water slides. Comes all the way through here and down through the bottom here, and the intercooler is located right down in the what I would call the cooling array, down in here. Then the air comes back up in here and enters our horse. What's the matter there, boy? Somebody wants something to eat. No, anyway, here's our air intake here, and here's our, below here where you see this screw right yonder is where our air filter is, and then the air goes in right like so. Excuse me. The air goes through the, wait a minute, but the air comes up here eventually. Oh, this is foam. Ooh, ooh, that's interesting. Well, anyway, somewhere along here, we have, I'm looking. Let me see, hang on there. Is it? Well, anyway, the air gets back to our air intake system after going through the intercooler. It's all baffling to me, but I can tell you one thing I am certain about. It takes SAE 5W30 oil, which is an oil that I think we could all work together to enjoy, because it's a fairly common oil, especially on General Motors vehicles. This is a real interesting thing. Look at how we have, it's almost like a fuse board right here, which is some of your electrics that are mounted vertically instead of horizontally, so you can get to, there's a bunch of parts that I don't know what they do, but boy, they'll be easy to replace if they go bad, like these switches right in here. This thing here, which is your anti-discombobulator, which is very critical if you have like one of those DeLoreans that can travel through time. One of the problems they had with that in Back to the Future was they couldn't get to it because underneath the engine. Well, it's right on top of the engine, so they can swap that out real easy. But anyway, numbers. I dropped my guidance here. What we have is 137 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, which for a little triple like this, 5,000 should be very easy to achieve because it can rev very quickly. It's like a motorcycle engine, basically. And the torque, 162 pounds of feet, that is available between 2,500 and 4,000 RPM is where our torque peak is. So that's a nice little juicy thing. I mean, that's, considering how small this engine is, that is an accomplishment of sorts. Speaking of small, here's your, that's where if you want to jump your car, there's a battery underneath there. There's your battery. It's small. I mean, I need a sense of scale. Look at my hand here. I don't have unusually small former presidential hands, but this is a really tight little engine, and it's packed in here pretty well. Mounted very far back, because one thing I was curious about is weight distribution. When the engines get really small like this and you have a front wheel drive drivetrain, in the past, there'd be kind of a predilection for the car's wheels to spin pretty easily. I haven't experienced that yet, but if we get some snow, which I probably will get, while I have this vehicle. I don't know how it's going to do in the snow. We'll have to see. Like I said, it is an SUV, but it is not available with all-wheel drive. Go figure. I don't know what that means. But then again, most of the rent-a-car most of the owners will probably live in a part of the country maybe where they don't get so much snow and it's not going to be an issue whatsoever. So transmission, yes, it has one. It has a 6-speed automatic transmission. Very standard fare. So there we are. Should be a real, from a maintenance standpoint, think about all the benefits you get. Someday you'll have to buy a spark plug for it, although they all make them over 100,000 miles these days. But you'll buy one less spark plug since it's a triple. When you change the oil on it, it probably doesn't have a very high oil capacity. It's probably like about a motorcycle. So that'll save you some money right there as far as your oil goes. And otherwise, I have no idea how complex this entire intercooling / turbocharging system is, but it's probably fairly simple as well. So there you go. And that is the lone engine that is available for this vehicle at this time. Just like the fact that it is only available with front-wheel drive, it's only available with this 1.2-liter turbocharged engine. But you do have the top of the line, though, in the Avenir trim level, and we'll examine that further very shortly. Yes. Now, these wheels look pretty big for this car. And like I said, the car has a surprising amount of ground clearance, considering when you don't have all-wheel drive available, I don't consider it to be an SUV myself. I consider it to be a station wagon, but that's me. I don't know why. Now, nobody ever pays any attention to me when I say that, so that's good. So you shouldn't either. But our wheel size, well, first of all, our tire size is 245/45 R19, so these are 19-inch wheels. Wow. That's a big wheel for a semi-compact, compact / mid-size car. Nice generous brake size, not as big as most, but so far, having been driving the car, the brakes seem fine, perfectly adequate for the vehicle and its mission in life. Easy. He disagrees. He thinks it needs more brakes. Thank you. I appreciate your opinion. Feel free to. Well, anyway, horses. But as we saunter back, we'll saunter back here. Look at this beautiful, beautiful fastback lifestyle. I think this is such a good-looking car. Like I said, I swear it says electric to me, you know? I just feel like that's what's going to happen with this thing. It will be electrified soon. They're going to do. I have a feeling whenever GM goes to the trouble of making an all-new model and a completely standalone thing, for the most part, I mean, they're all based on similar chassis, and basic running gear is often the same. But I feel like this thing is destined for all kinds of variations down the road. It just seems like that's what's going to happen. But for now, she's just a wagon, a front driver. And let's have a look here. Ooh, we have an electric power assisted tailgate. Now I have, since I was about to move something very heavy from one part of the domicile to another, you know, outside. I wasn't driving around the house or anything. So I had the seats folded, but there's our 60/40 folded rear seats. And as you see it now, you're looking at about 42 cubic feet of storage space. So that is quite, considering the fastback line, the fastback body style, that's quite a bit of space. If the seats are deployed and in position, that's cut down to about 20 cubic feet, but that's still pretty good. And the fit and finish back here is very plastic, but I'd put it this way, the quality of the materials is just plastic that you expect on a lot of cars, but the assembly is good. It's like, it seems to be assembled very nicely. And look at this vast space that we have our little tire in. Now you could easily, look at that. Now you look around there, I think you could easily get a full-size spare. He doesn't think so. Well, fine. You could too. As you can see, I don't see where our jack and stuff is. Did they forget it? Did they leave me without it? No, it's underneath here. If you, I believe it is, yeah. If you just remove the temporary spare tire, you will find your jack and stuff. So that's good. It has motility. You have this nice little light right here, dome right there. So that's quite a bit of space. Now I'm really surprised in a lot of ways that this gate is power operated, considering this vehicle does not even have a navigation system or all-wheel drive. Did I mention that? It screams that it should have it. You know, I was talking to a fella at the fleet company, and I said, you know, it's going to snow up here. I don't know if you want to be sending me a front-wheel drive car right now. And he says, oh, no, man, it's great. It's got good tires on it. It'll be fine. Well, we're going to get to test that theory. And it does have good tires. These are Continentals. They are M+S approved, so they're just your basic all-season tires. But something I've discovered with a lot of all-season tires is if the season becomes winter and there's snow, if there's more than about an inch of snow on the ground, they can have problems if you have any kind of an elevation to climb. If there's a hill and there's more than an inch of snow, these things have difficulty. But I'm delighted to have it prove me wrong. I'd be even more delighted if I didn't get to test that particular aspect of the vehicle and it didn't snow while I got it. That's me. But look at the styling, I'm telling you. That's a car that you park it at your Tractor Supply or whatever, or your Starbucks, and you walk out to the car, you go, well, that's a good-looking car. Look, I look good in this good-looking car, man. I like especially the front end on it because, like I said, it has such a futuristic look to it. And they've really tucked away the radiator and intercooler very nicely because, as you'll notice, there's a lot of cars running around that are electric and they just completely seal up this area here, around here. This is all sealed up and part of the regular bodywork because they don't have to have any ventilation through there. Well, actually that's not true. They have to have some, but not as much as with an internal combustion engine. But they do have their cooling systems for the batteries. So, anyway, the Avenir. Shall we crawl around on the interior and see if we have a rent-a-car here or if we have something a little more substantial? Let's. As we walk down the Avenir. Oh, hey, I discovered something. I can actually adjust these. Here's your instrument cluster, which is a fascinating look at minimalism. And I mean it in a good sense, not a bad sense. In this particular setup, which is the one I like, and took me a while to find, and didn't think such a thing existed initially, was here's your speedometer here, but here's your tachometer. See, look at there. Woo! That's that little triple, that little 3-cylinder turbo, 1.2 liters of very small engine with 137 horsepower. But it does okay. It gets us around, and it's telling me my mileage is, well, I'll show that to you right now. Trip 1, I've gone 218 miles, and there's a, no, sorry, I touched it. Shouldn't touch the touch screen if you don't mean to touch it. 218 miles and 30.4 miles per gallon. So it's very respectable gas mileage. And there's nothing wrong with this engine. It just, it's not exciting, but I think if a reasonable person owns it, it'll last. It'll more than do the job. It'll be fine for you, and it'll get fairly decent fuel economy too. Not hybrid territory, but good, very good. So anyway, this particular instrument cluster, in its minimalism, has your gas gauge over here, and has your temperature gauge over here. And then here's our total mileage on this vehicle, 4,092 miles. And I have 110 miles of range left on this tank. Over here, this is cruise control, amazingly. This is steering in the cruise control, which is at the moment turned on, and I made it go away. And here's your following distance. So all good. Now, if I go over to here, I'm gonna hit gauges right there. Battery voltage and coolant temperature, that's over here. So you can access the actual temperature if you want to. And we're doing 14.6 volts on the battery, which is a nice charge going on, very nice. Now, where is the area where I discovered there were themes? I believe It's not there, it's not there. Let's go to home and settings. There we go. Not too complex. Phones, Wi-Fi network, Wi-Fi hotspot, display. Now this is probably this display. Yeah, just on off. That's all. That's all it gives you there. Now somewhere, I had this problem before. Twice, locating where the heck this is. There's your, by the way, that's for your tire pressure monitor right there. Telephone, audio system. As you can see, there's no navigation. This car does have none is present of the navigation. You have to navigate yourself. That's not the end of the world, of course. If you have a phone and you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can directly interface with it. I don't know how well it does that. I avoid doing that just because I like to see what the car does on its own all the time. The more dependent the car is on the phone, the less I'm likely to like the interface system, because I think the car should be a standalone thing, especially for some of us who actually, sometimes intentionally, leave their phone at home. So if we go back here, let's go back to where I was. Let's go back there. And as you can see, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, it's so wired up for that. It's kind of amazing when you think about it, how dependent these cars have become so quickly on this technology. Because they can pass the buck, kick the can down the road, so to speak. Where is, am I going to go through this again? How many times do I have to? Maybe it's in apps. I don't know why it would be there. No, it's not there. If I go back here, somewhere, do we have anything other than this? What happens if I do that? Oh, we can show this in cluster if I want to. Well, let's do that. And now, oh, it's when they say show in cluster, they mean like dominate everything and kick the poor tachometer's been kicked to the curb when you do that. Well, we're not having that. There are themes. Where's my themes? Well, we're going to do this. Oh, there is no other this. Well, I can show you one thing that's really interesting. This switch here is a roller switch, and you got sound on this side. That should turn the radio on, right? Yeah, it tells you what your audio sources are, and then you can tune it. But when it's just sitting here idle like this, excuse me, in other words, you're not in some kind of a sub menu, it doesn't do anything. You can just play with it all day long, and it doesn't roll the central trip computer through here or anything like that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to disconnect. Okay. Teen Driver. Sounds like a great idea for a podcast. Rear seat reminder. Oh, I've been wanting to turn this off since I got the car. Great. There we go. Detection says comfort and convenience, lighting, power door locks. I don't know what happened to it, and I'm determined to find it. Why not? Wi-Fi networks, spot, private phone check, display. We've seen display, but we don't see. I just used it not long ago because it took me forever to find. What I was after was, for fun, I put all the language in French, just, to try to make this sometimes not quite as dynamic and exciting a car as you might think. I thought I'd spruce it up a little bit by parler français, but I realized that wasn't a good idea, and so for those who may follow me, so I set it back. Well, I tell you, I can't figure it out. I've looked and looked at teen drivers. Oh, no, guys. This is what I hate about these, what we've come to as far as our touchscreens being, I mean, it's okay if you're young and you grew up with nothing but touchscreens ever since you've been alive. I'm sure it makes perfect sense to you. But to some of us who have been around a little longer than that, we have discovered that All right, I can't figure it out. Trip. Let's go to trip. Why not? That's where we're at. We do this. Show and cluster. Yeah. I'm sure it will just dominate. Well, I don't mind that, actually. There. We're dominating that. But anyway, there is another theme that you can pick from for this car, and I can't for the life of me figure out where it is. Now that's bad since I've accessed it twice since I had the vehicle, but this is what I've been talking about for a long time about whether or not things are counterintuitive. If I can't find it, I think the new owner could have a real problem finding some of this stuff because maintenance, let's go there. Oh, our tire pressure is strangely perfect. It's absolutely where it should be. And fuel economy. Now this might be interesting. Best score, was 39. How did somebody get 39 miles per gallon? Almost 40 with this. Boy, that must have been down here with the wind behind them, huh? I don't know. Well, all right, enough of that. Sorry that took so long to get nowhere, but if I somehow recall how to get over to the and change the theme on this thing, I shall. But otherwise, we're going to live. Well, first of all, let's get rid of that now that I think about it. Okay, remove from cluster. I want to have my tachometer back. Oh, great. This is the other theme I was talking about earlier. Why it's shifted into this theme, I don't know. But this is even more minimalist. You do have a tachometer, right? No, you don't. This particular theme has an analog speedometer and it has a digital speedometer, so you have two speedometers. You have your fuel and your cooling, but you do not have a tachometer. And when I first got in the car, I think there's some driving stuff I did where I said, oh, there's no way to get a tachometer on this car. That's odd. And it's not entirely unheard of. There's a lot of hybrids that don't have a tachometer for the gasoline engine. It's just basically a power meter that tells you whether you're using electricity more or if you're using the gas engine more. But in this case, wow, isn't that something? I can't for the life of me find the, let's try this again. Try to go up or down. No, that's not going to work. Not going to work. Now I can't get my tachometer back. Now this is going to make me angry. What if I go to phone? No. Tire pressure monitor. Oh, traction control. You can just turn that off here. That's what that is. I didn't realize that's what that was. I thought that was checking your tire pressure monitors. I'll be. Isn't that fascinating? We're going to try one more time. One more time. Comfort and convenience. Let's go there. Chime volume. No. Power door locks. No. Oh, that's it. Maybe teen driver gets a tachometer. Well, that would make sense. I tried apps. System is... Oh, okay, we're getting closer because this is how I found the language where I switched it. And if we go here, maybe we'll get, nope. That's just another version of display. And, well, I'm not going to get I don't think I'll ever see my tachometer ever again. Well, I'm belaying the point here. This entire video is going to be the fact that I can't figure out how to navigate my way through their navigation system, i.e. the onboard system navigation, because as I mentioned before, it does not have navigation. But what it does have is very good adaptive cruise control. Here's your distance, and this right here is your your resume and your set and your plus and your minus. This works real well. But where's, if I want to put the steering aspect into it, in other words, while I'm cruising, if it'll try to keep the car in the lane, where's that? Well, logically, it's all the way down here. There, now I've turned it on. Why is it down here? A country mile away from where the actual cruise is. I don't know. I'm sure someone at General Motors could tell us, but maybe they couldn't. I have no idea. But anyway, there's not much more to show you on the central display because, like I said, there is no navigation system. The radio itself is fairly easy to navigate. I didn't have that much trouble with it. And naturally, hooking up your phone and everything else works fine, works pretty seamlessly, as most of them do now. There's other problems with the cars, but that's one thing that works. So anyway, that's that. Now, what else? We have our ventilation system, which is very straightforward. The only thing straightforward on the car as far as the interface is concerned. Here's your heated seat right here. Your heated steering, incidentally, oops, wee, is right here. And now it's on. And boy, does it get hot. I mean, you could make it like something here if you wanted to take some of your crepe sauce and just dole it out right on top of here and then turn on the heat, and before you know it, you'll have some lovely crepes. Probably if you're stuck in traffic during your morning commute, you could have crepes. I'm just saying, not that I recommend that, but I'm saying you could do it if you wanted to. But anyway, we don't have a separate zone system in this car. Again, this is all screeches of being a rent-a-car, but it's not. Well, it's like the top trim level, but it doesn't have any extra anything on it. That's why the sticker on it's only $30,000. Only $30,000. Anyway, down here is your phone charger, which works great. It's a QI version of life that we all are becoming accustomed to. We just slap things down and they charge. You also have your, you see here, you got your USB-A and your USB-C right there, and a 12-volt hub right there for you to plug in your 12-volter. Now here is a real blast from the past. It's a totally normal shifter. Now Ford, in their cars, used to have a shifter like this, and this is why I don't like this particular type of non-quadrant shifter. You're used to just doing this, throwing it into gear. Half the time, if you're not careful, you will put it in the low by mistake. Just because straight back, you're just going from here, especially if you go from reverse, the transmission is going to fall out of the car now. And you just do that. Some people just are used to putting it, going straight back to put the car in drive, and if you do that on this vehicle, you will get into the low range. And low range is just low range. There is no manual. Well, wait a minute. Yes, there is. We do have a manual mode right here. A plus and a minus. That's nice. That's very nice. So I didn't realize we had a stick manual. I'm going to have to play with that because this little engine, this little 3-cylinder engine with the turbocharger, it really has a strong turbo kick to it that you should know about. And what else do we have here? Here's our auto start and stop off and on. This car's auto start works really well at lights. I think a lot of it is the fact that it is such a small engine that it's very, for lack of a better term, it's very easy to start up. The starter that actually does this on this car, I would imagine, is not all that huge because the turnover, you could probably turn it over with your hand. This is the kind of thing, if it had a crank in the front of it, you could probably crank this thing right up and fire it up because it's such a little engine. And only 3 cylinders with 3 compression sources for you to overcome when you would do the starting. But what it ultimately means is that the car is very, very smooth. You'll pull into a stoplight or a stop sign and the engine will stop, and then the moment you let up the brakes, it'll fire right back up like nothing. You never even knew the engine was turned off. But another thing about this engine I want to point out is at idle, and it's idling right now, the engine is functioning, it's very, very smooth. And I always love to see that in a car because it just speaks well of the power plant in question. We do have heated seats, I mentioned. We do not have ventilated seats, and you wouldn't be surprised considering we don't have zoning here, a left and right. It's just one overall cabin temperature. That shouldn't surprise you any that there's no ventilation. So let's look at in here. We have a very conventional and yet useful, but not all that big, center console. And then our glove box is actually a good sized glove box. Those are sort of disappearing, but some vehicles still have a good size glove box. We have no sunroof, moonroof, or any other kind of panoramic roof of any kind on this vehicle. It's just steel. Again, speaks of a rent-a-car life to come for it, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, our seats, overall, they're very comfortable. They don't have a whole lot of lateral support. The bolsters are fairly small on the sides of the seat, as you can see. What is our material? Our material is, they're 8-way power adjusted, by the way, for the driver. Everybody else, you can, pound sand, as they say. What else we have? We have air conditioning. I just wanted to let you know, because you may have wondered if we do. We have all kinds of different things. It does not say exactly. Interior is called Gideon with ebony. Yeah, okay. Well, this seat definitely doesn't have ebony on the trim. It's white. So, okay. Not real sure about that. Oh, let's go to options. I bet it's in the option. The Avenir Advanced Safety Package includes rear cross traffic alert. Mirrors are outside. Oh, they're not heated mirrors. Otherwise, you have to get this package for it. That's where you get the power seat as well. And the seat side auto dimming manual. Huh. That must be the outside mirrors. They went all to town on those. And it does have the lane change alert with blind spot adjustment. Adaptive cruise control. See, I don't see anything on here that says leather, but it looks like leather to me. It's a very nice material, whatever it is. It seems fairly durable. And you do have your heating, so you'll be fine. Yeah, I don't see anywhere on here where it says, huh. We do have a power express down, but they don't express up. I've always found that fascinating. There's certain window controls on your electric windows, which try to find me a hand crank window anywhere anymore. Even Jeep Wranglers, I think they're gone. But the fact of the matter is, you lower the window like that, and it's done expressly, but you got to manually hold it all the way up to get it up. Normally, I've in the past discovered that if you have that function, then you have the one-touch up function. Again, this is one of these little areas where are they basically cutting corners, or are they just trying to be more selective about their accessorization? I don't know. I think it's to save money, to be honest with you. But that's what this car's about. This is why this would be an ideal fleet vehicle. It looks like an SUV. It's got a good amount of cargo room in it. But what doesn't it have? You cannot get it with all-wheel drive. You do have your cool, what's it called? Grumpy crank, Crank-a-Mongo, compound crank rear suspension, which I'm so fond of, and I'll show you in detail. But anyway, so let's check out the best feature of this car. I've been bragging on it. It has all these things I don't care for. Look at the size of the rear door. Huge. Huge. Well, it's big. It's not huge, but very, very accommodating. This would be a good Uber car, I guess. As a matter of fact, I bet a lot of people will buy it just for that. But look at the room back here. This is an Uber car right here. I figured it out. Instead of calling it a rent-a-car, I think it's actually an Uber car for people who want to run an Uber service out of their domicile. Because the legroom is really good, the headroom is really good. It's a nice big broad back seat. We got a very nice armrest right here that's at a very jaunty angle, and it's good. Look at the floor. Here's our snow removal device. Look at the floor. It's completely flat, so you got all this foot room. Then you got this little space right here for putting your phone if you want to while you're riding back here. USB-A, USB-C. Huh? For your Uber customers? I figured it out. That's what this car's about. Now, we have a central dome light, but we don't have map lights back here, which is a little surprising considering I feel that some thought went into making this comfortable for your passengers. But the biggest feature is room. It has great room. Express down, the window goes down all the way. Got to manually hold it up to close it, and it's also tinted. So that's good. So this is if somebody had to take you to the airport, you got all this generous cargo room back here. Well, enough anyway, and this would work okay. This would be a good Uber car, even though I do not condone. I am not a big person into ride sharing type of things. I prefer cabs, just because I'm old and I like somebody that's professional, and I've had some real professional cab drivers, like help me solve crimes and things. So it's just worth thinking about. I bet you there's some excellent Uber people out there who will in fact solve crimes with you. So just so you know. But anyway, that's the interior of this thing. It's got a very generous rear seat for its size. Lots of headroom. A tachometer if you can find it. And if you can, it's like what they said about democracy. You have a democracy if you can hold on to it. Well, guess what? You'll have a tach if you can hold on to it and figure that out. Otherwise, it's a nice car. As far as the build quality and everything goes, there's a lot of cheap plastic in it, just like every other car that's for sale these days, pretty much. But it seems to be very well assembled. I detected out of 4,000 miles, no real rattles or anything like that. So there you go. That's the Avenir interior. Now let's move on to ride time. Alert! Alert! I finally figured something out. It took me a while, but here's how we do it. And I don't know why I didn't remember this, because it's kind of unusual, and therefore you should remember it. But anyway, we go down here, and here's our thumb thing that appears to do nothing. You see? Nothing. But if you press it down and hold it, like I'm doing now, release it, and there we go. You have a gauge option. First of all, we'll go down here because you have vehicle information, which is on the instrument cluster. But if I go to gauge 2, I get my tachometer. And if I go to gauge 1, it's minimalist. And here we go. There we are, minimalist. No tachometer, as you may have seen before. But you still have your temperature and fuel gauges on the left-hand side. But if you like me, and you prefer gauge 2 system, and there's your tachometer. Whee! There you go. So that's how it's done, this thumb thing. You just have to punch it once to activate it. I'm not real sure exactly why they decided to do that, but I'm sure they have their reasons. They always do. Well, we're going to try the off-road segment. It's not really off the road. I tell you what it is, though. It's what's called flood damage. And I'm glad this thing has some ground clearance. And it does all right now, because things are... traction is not really a problem as much as suspension durability. Because this is a mess here. But that ground clearance is good. And the suspension's fairly soft on this car. But it does okay. It'll get you out of that situation, but it should. I mean, anything should. And then we're going to head this way. Boy, it is a gloomy day. I thought the sun was supposed to be out and be nice and pretty, but no. Gauges, what's gauges do? Oh, look at there. Battery voltage, coolant temperature. And we'll go back to trip. Trip is far more interesting. I would show you the navigation system, but it doesn't have one. So, and I never. This is of course compatible with your Apple CarPlay and your Android Auto. Boy, look at all this mud! Wow. But I'm not compatible with those two things because I don't typically have my phone engaged with my automobile because I don't like that. I like them separate. Call me strange. And so, you know, if you don't have your phone with you, I mean, well, I do use it for streaming music. And that actually, whether you want to or not, it seems to me on most cars it will also allow you to talk on the phone hands-free, which I never talk on the phone at all anyway. So that's one thing I've liked about modern technology is you don't have to talk to people anymore. You can just text them in curt messages, curt simplified messages. So there's a fair amount of we haven't gotten up to highway speeds. There's a fair amount of road noise. I'm not sure. I don't think it's the tires per se. I think it's just not a real seriously insulated vehicle. With a price tag that's a third of that of the last GMC pickup I tested, they I wouldn't say they cut corners. They maximize build efficiency by not putting a whole lot on this car. And that's why, you know, I kid the fact that this is going to end up being a rent-a-car more than anything else. But I think it will, because this is what this car excels at. There's a couple of things this car is actually really good at. One of which is it has a very large, commodious back seat for a car of this size. It really does. It's very comfortable back there. Plenty of room to stretch out. That's one key thing to it. And the other is there's no incredibly weak points in terms of like glaring. The ride quality is what I would call is exactly what you would expect. It's pretty average. It doesn't punish you. It's not overly harsh, but it's not overly smooth either. And handling is fine, but you do have a fair amount of front-wheel drive. Some of the characteristics you have with just front-wheel drive cars, you definitely have it on this one. It doesn't have a bad degree of torque steer or anything like that, but you can tell you're driving a front-wheel drive car. I mean, they've done a very nice job of isolating some of it from the steering, but they can only do so much. That's where all-wheel drive is so good, because it helps balance out the thrust, if you will, and eliminates some of the foibles. You know, I just realized I did something real silly. I'll have to repair that. All right. Oh, here's another area this car has a great strength. The idle is really smooth on this car. It's like the engine ain't running, and it. I have not seen any indication. Oh yeah, it does have auto stop. Well, the auto stop works really well, but the car itself actually idles very smoothly also. And I tell you about. There's no tachometer, is there? Is there? Is there? And how do I get back? There's a couple of things on this car that I don't understand, like this right here, this thumb reel. As of right now, I mean, I've probably figured this out in a previous segment of this video, but just driving the car right off the bat, just got it. I have no idea what that does. It doesn't appear to do anything as far as menus or anything on the... I mean, what happens if I do that? Settings. Now, can I do something with the Wi-Fi networks? Can I do anything at all with the... I bet if I hit display, it's just going to say on and off. What do you want to bet? I got something right. Yeah, that's what that does. It just turns it off if you want to. Units, updates, about. See, I'm unaware of anything I can really do to this instrument cluster. I know I can do this. Wait a second. I can go here, and there is a setting, remove from cluster. There. Okay. Now, what do we have? We have temperature, we have fuel, we have speed, and is that our tachometer? No. This is a sweeping verification of what the digital's telling you, but I see no, this car doesn't have a tachometer on it at all, I guess. I sure don't see none. There's fuel economy. Oh, what's this do? Average miles per gallon, reset best course, show in cluster. So I could show this in the cluster if I wanted to. But how about a tachometer? I'm just curious as to what we're spinning on this thing. Whoa. Whoa. Yep, it's a little bitty engine with a turbocharger on it. You can always tell. All right. Well, I'm telling you, there is no tachometer, and I see no way of accessing one, and I still don't know what the heck this is for. What if I do that? It doesn't do anything. I mean, I guess there are controls on the back of the steering that you hit with your fingers right underneath here, where normally a paddle shifter is located, where you can adjust the radio volume, and I think you can go from your favorite channels on this side. But man, I don't see anything on this car that will allow me to alter the instrument cluster to the point where I actually have a tachometer. I guess they think you just don't want one. Again, another sign that portends the possibility of electrification, because you don't need a tachometer when you have an electrified engine power plant. I'm just saying, just telling you. Oh, I don't have this on automatic. That'll be more fun. We do have heated seats. That's good. Not ventilated. What's our temperature? 60. Yeah, good. It's all set up right. Now, there's also this, I mentioned this before, but I can't get over it. That looks near as damn it as a place to have a heads-up display, but there is no heads-up display on this car. There is no moonroof on this car. Wow. Well, I tell you, I actually like to have a car from time to time that's sparsely equipped, because there's an awful lot of things that they put on cars nowadays that you don't need. But a tachometer would be good to have, I'm just saying. You know, I've had several people think that I do these car reviews when I'm drunk. Well, as much as I could have fun with that, I hate to disappoint you, but I haven't had any alcohol for 13 or 14 years now. I had to quit due to a medical condition, and that was that. So I stopped consumption of any alcohol, and I haven't had anything. The reason you hear what sounds like inebriation is I just revert to my Texas roots for some time, and there was never any real hurry to get your message out there when you're talking. There's no point. And that comes, why do Texans talk that way? Well, it goes way back. It goes back to being around livestock all the time. Because a lot of livestock, like cows, pigs, they really don't tend to do stuff rapidly. They tend to take their time when they do things. Horses can be one way or the other, but most livestock that you deal with in Texas, slow, methodical, deliberate. That's where that comes from. Since I live so far away from Texas and have for years, why does that accent come back? I don't know. It just does. It's real strange. Now, I have to say now that I've got this car at speed a little better. Due to its wonderful aerodynamic nature, it's actually pretty quiet. The only real discernible noise that I hear, well, you hear when you get on the engine, it's a noisy engine. That should surprise no one, because being an inline triple with a turbocharger, it's going to make some noise. But otherwise, I think we're just getting a little bit of road noise through the tires. But wind noise is very, very muted on this car. And again, I think that absolutely has to do with the fact that it is so aerodynamically designed, so swoopy, slides through the air with the greatest of ease. And the brakes are nice. Nothing wrong with them. It's actually kind of unusual these days to get in the car that doesn't have good brakes, because, well, one of the things that's helped, there's a combination of two things that help stop your car much better than brakes used to, and they don't really have anything to do with the brakes per se. What it is, it's the quality of the tires and thus the traction. And then the other thing is anti-lock brakes, because they do maximize the car's ability to stop in the shortest available distance. And these are two things. When you have a really good set of tires working in cahoots with anti-lock, it maximizes the efficiency of whatever brakes you have. And naturally, there's still cars that have really, really great brakes, because the rotors are huge, calipers are huge, the pads are made out of a compound that's especially grippy. But even if you have, let's just say, mediocre rent-a-car type brakes, they still perform very, very well, because they're being optimized by all these other things. And you should go through life being optimized, I believe. Wow. And now for something completely different. What you're observing, as you observe, is a compound crank rear suspension. Now, this is something I don't have a lot of familiarity with. But it looks, it's really interesting. What we have is our coil spring. Of course, this being an automobile, it's pretty much standard fare. There's our coiler, right there. There's your coil spring, and it comes down in this little cup down here and holds on. And here we have, which I suppose is the compound part of it. It's a link, more than anything else, that goes from here all the way over to here, and it attaches to this little swing thing right there. And then we have this crossbar that is bolted here, and you see it's basically, it looks like it is basically suspending this crank situation. And so so it's just, as near as I can tell, it's just a different way of locating the rear suspension. It's not really anything more complex than that. But I find it very, very interesting that I haven't seen this before. And as near as I can tell, the rear suspension is fine, is good. I have no truck with it. Ride quality is very good. The handling's good. But what an interesting choice. Now, is this available, or is it found on any other General Motors vehicles? I don't know right off the bat, but it seems extremely unlikely that it wouldn't be. Because almost all these manufacturers, they have a series of common platforms or chassis, and then they build off of that for a specific application. So, this might be a suspension that would work on all kinds of things, but what it won't work on is an all-wheel drive rear end. If they added all-wheel drive to this, which they do not yet, may not ever, I don't know, they'd have to change the suspension, because I don't think it would be, I don't think it would function quite the way they would find optimal. But isn't that interesting? I find it, I love stuff like this, because it's a different way of doing things. Now, it doesn't have an upper arm, so I don't know what you know, I'd have to really play with this some more. I wish I had a lift. Well, that wouldn't help either. I could put the camera back. I could mount the camera right up in here and we could watch it. Should I do that? No, I'm not going to do that. I don't have time right now. That would be great to see. But with the compound crank, I mean, we've all been called cranky from time to time, but suspension. So what else do we have? Well, we have a nice, looks like protection system up front, like a skid plate underneath the engine entrails. The exhaust hangs down kind of low, but otherwise you can see this has a lot of ground clearance. What it just does not have, though, is all-wheel drive, and I still don't understand why it doesn't. And here, I'll go out on a limb, and I'm going to say, unless they just run this model for a couple of years and sell a lot of rent-a-cars and then say, and don't do anything else, I think they'll add it. I think they will add all-wheel drive to this. But anyway, this is where we bolted down on the boat, because this did come from Korea after all. And you'll notice that about cars that are brought across the ocean. A lot of times they will have pretty substantial, we would call them recovery hooks to pull the vehicle out, but that's not what they're really designated for, but you can sure use it for that. In most normal situations, like if it was just stuck in a snowbank, because it doesn't have all-wheel drive, you could just put your winch right on here and just yank that sucker right out of there. So, interesting stuff, huh? The compound crank. Welcome, compound crank. I greet you. I hope I see you in other cars just because I think you're funky. There's one thing I want to say about it that's interesting, is it keeps the weight the unsprung weight very low, and that may be a big reason why they're using this configuration. And I wouldn't be surprised also if one was to go through history, they would find that maybe it's been used on automobiles before, but it couldn't go back that far, because it would have to be a front-wheel drive vehicle, and at least in the domestic market, they didn't come along until much later. So there you go, compound crank your way to happiness. So finally, I saved the best for last, and that's two things. One is the price of the 24 Envista Avenir, because the base price is a reasonable $28,600, and as equipped, our unit was $30,490. That's one great thing about this car. Another one is the fuel economy. You get 28 in the city and 32 on the highway with a 30 overall. I only got about 26, but that was me. I think it's very reasonable to assume that you could get 30 out of this car without any trouble. So, there you have it. Is it a rent-a-car, or is it something you should have in your driveway? Go take a look. If you need a wagon, which is really what it is, not really an SUV, it's a real nice choice in a lot of ways. And mainly, if you want to save some money and have a good, reliable piece of transportation, this might be your one. Take care, everybody.
Whatever the tube tells you, you dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.